Panic will serve no purpose. Resistance is futile.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to episode 29. Blue, how are you?
I'm good today, Mike.
Awesome. I know we got a big show today in episode 29. What are we going to talk about here in episode 29?
What we'll be speaking about is hyper extra dimensional time traveling. Inertial effect between two realms or two dimensional movement speeds with the hologram itself. One that had to deal with the movement speeds initialized to Enoch, Elijah, Moses, and Mary, dealing with divine alter or third heaven celestial kingdom frequencies, as well as alternation of a hologram being projected by what humans would call aliens dash extraterrestrials of different beings into unitized UFO ingrading points or higher inlet speeds, losing time withdrawals through other planetized realms physically.
Wow. I know we run out of time here every day, so I hope we don't lose track of time in our show here. Hey, before we get going here, please, we appreciate you watching. We appreciate you listening. Please go ahead and hit like and subscribe and click on notifications so you know when we get new information posted. And of course, if we're not on your favorite platform where you get your stuff, let us know and we'll try to get there. Blue, let's get right into it. Episode 29.
Yes, the celestial kingdom, exactation to the divine frequencies of Enoch, Mary, Moses, as well as Elijah's and others, being able to go up into certain divine effects, certain altered dimensions physically, and taking man back into the same frequency outlet itself. There have been recent interactions as well from humans, even lower coding than them, self-manualized, especially child been able to divinely REM or even motivate their hologram into a projection on another alter realm, a divine realm. There are many types of divine realms, but there is one is stagnated through the core itself, the essential divine source itself, and that goes into the celestial kingdoms. There is more than one, but there is a main outlet that goes through this matrix.
So what you're saying is that when I've been brought up in the church and I was taught there was another place called heaven, this is what we're talking about here, essentially, the same place?
Well, it's another alternated divine realm or another alter dimensional realm that humans have been able to physically been taken off, lose time, and come back, and they've been able to explain about it. Certain churches have. There have been interactions through that, through a paranormal divine effect that have activated their in-tune frequencies and their data streams outwards. So they are manually set somewhere else altogether on such a good proactive form that realm itself they would call heaven. They would call something as so much better than here and able to see and experience it and come back and lose time of that perception.
Now, is this different than jumping in time? Like I had a thing happen to me when I was a late teenager, and I was in one area of town, and then 15-20 minutes went by and I was in another area of town, and I can't account for that 15 or 20 minutes in between. It's totally black. And I don't think I was on anything that would have made me, black out like that. But I know I wasn't imagining it. Someone else was with me and I asked them and they had the same verifiable experience with nothing in between. So I was just, could that be something like what you're talking about?
That actually goes into another thing we're talking about that has nothing to do with this. This is the body physically taken up into another planet another realm, another dimension, losing the time that they thought they had in perception to the time here and brought back, and misunderstanding that time. The other thing you said, we'll be having to deal with the actual time bending or manualization of your higher speeds moving from one initialization code to the other. But this itself has to do with just going into another dimension. Now, when it comes into the abduction portrayal scenes, we will talk about that next, but finish what you would say and I will initiate that.
Yeah, it was just it was just a weird experience for me to not be able to account for time and yet still have somehow traveled from one area to another. Like I wasn't imagining this. This didn't. I asked somebody else. I mean, can you imagine hearing that you're with somebody or you're at a social event and they go, "Wow, did we just shift in time? I can't account for the last 20 minutes. And how did we get here? We weren't there." You would look at that person like they were crazy. So it took a lot for me to ask this person, did you just experience this? And they actually laughed and said, yeah, I thought I was crazy. That's why I didn't say anything. So how does that happen? I know you mentioned time bending, but is that what we did? We just didn't.
It's similar to time skipping and time bending are similar. We will get into that next, but I would like to finish about
sure. Go ahead.
Real scene.
Yeah,
that is going to be next. Exactly. Okay. It's similar to this, but that's programmed from what you're saying in the same dimension, the same outlet. But the other thing, initializing is to a different dimension, physically into another outlet. Similar, but not programmable. Good citation on your point. Now, the abduction scene or the physicality scene through the higher beings brought up, instead of the celestial kingdoms itself, it's putting the motivator of the humans program speeds their hologram into an actual UFO inversal line or another planetary grid itself. Now, celestial kingdoms go into the celestial grids of the hologram moving into another celestial timeline. Now, when it comes to the missing timelines of the physical part with the ET, it goes into the physical realms that are closer indexed to this realm, this matrix itself. So when you're losing time between two perceptions, the more of the losing time and the more of the in-depth scenarios of the celestial parts go into the altered third heavens, the altered domains, the altered domains. The other part goes into the physical domains, and it's easier to transactory under the timeline effect when your hologram is being prioritized and shifted from the higher beings itself. And we're going to get up now into what you had talked about of the time bending, or initializing movement of time speeds itself.
Yeah, because that's just real. You know, when you have a personal story with that, when you have a personal connection, it just turns it up a little bit to 11 on the knob there. My whole thing with this is there's a difference in time and space. I've been led to believe by movies and so forth. For instance, if you are abducted, I guess you may have a different perception of time. Like maybe time's only a short time, but here on Earth, maybe it's 45 years or something. Does that make sense?
It's reverse. The timelines could be reversed, but it also could go into junction and skip in between the dimensions and portray into the same timeline itself. Time doesn't have a movement speed, meaning it can be boundless and endless. It can go anywhere and everywhere, depending on where the actual electromagnetic fields are playing that.
Is this something that you think anybody is capable of having happen to them or make this happen to them? Is there a way I can make this happen to me?
Well, prioritizing, moving, the bending of time, or be able to super mind strength your own algorithm code into something else in a deeper perception can. And it could, but it depends on the psyche awareness. Most humans don't have certain psyche awareness, so they're not able to manualize or manipulate the timeline movement waves upon the electromagnetic fields. The timeline waves can also index or slowing down the intro-reversal waves that go through your mind itself. Now, people have had perceptions where they thought that time slowed down around them while they're awake, and or they're pretty much like you said, they thought they were somewhere one time, and then like within seconds later they're somewhere else. Their mind is prioritizing at a skip interval, and if it can be calibrated at just the right frequency, the mind can be set and tuned into the timeline intervals itself, revitalizing the psyche mind's awareness code.
Wonder if that's ever been done for your own good and we not know it. Like maybe you were about to get involved into a dangerous situation, or maybe you were about to do something very bad, and maybe you've been almost like a guardian angel type situation, like pulling you out of this reality and putting you over here at this time.
Yep. And you got to think about the movie The Matrix. You know how he's able to manually set himself much quicker than the internal loads of the actual formality code itself.
Yeah.
And get much quicker. Well, it's a stability code that humans can perceive as well through their mind and their holograms. They can open their awareness higher, motivate their mind quicker, and be able to set an algorithm and a placement so their neural waves can read like stuff like this, books, like skim reading just really quickly. Or that's a part of being able to manipulate the timelines in your own mind. When you skim read, you're manipulating your timeline movement waves because you're able to actually higher definition. I and a few others, there are others that are able to do it. It's rare, but anybody can have it. Being able to just be able to motivate your mind much more quickly. When you're able to motivate your mind much more quickly, you're going to be able to motivate the timeline shifts around you and manifest in its designated speeds that you need to. When people skip their timelines, they're only justifying because they don't have a good designation code. And the next thing we would be talking about that deals with time-bending protocols are tunnel vision itself. Tunnel vision neuroscience and structural awareness. Now, there are two different perceptions of what tunnel vision can be, and so humans won't disinform themselves of what that understanding is. There's a tunnel vision where someone can get dizzy and activated awareness code. There's also tunnel vision that maintains the broad perceptions of the mind and operating at a different and most high speed it can, but dislodging certain other operation points. Those certain other operation points go and flow with the lost puzzle links that go into the mind itself. So when they're trajectorying that tunnel vision, they're pointing their broad perception at one algorithm code. They can disengage other flows of the mind and lose that link up and that piece of perception. There is a way to regain the consciousness of the flow through that broad perception mind, but they have to, for initializing an interlinked statistic point. Not many people understand that when they're perceiving one thing, they're losing a lot of another. That's why a lot of humans nowadays, they have mind loss to certain things. Or over time, they're lost of the perceptions of what they had dealt with when they were a kid, or even when they were very tiny, because they have disengaged that certain pinpointed algorithm neural code that was locked in from their higher neural wave. It's gone. But in a way, they can regain the inner conscious status code.
Wow. So, and if I understand you correctly, if I had an experience like as a child, like a very small child, I'm talking less than 5 years old, and I can remember that experience to this day, even though it seems meaningless and doesn't seem to mean anything, but it's a memory that I have. But I can almost feel myself getting put back in that place in that time. Is that what we're talking about?
No, it's pretty much your broad awareness of the tunnel vision itself motivates what your main points of effect are as you get older, even on that transactory code. When you're younger, you lose certain perceptions of time and you cannot remember that. And even when you're older, you you're losing certain things. So the loss of awareness. You can gain and regain consciousness throughout the whole entire time that you're living, that your hologram is living. by manualizing the tunnel visions inside your mind core and setting off an indicator speed so that way the lower perception codes of what you have lost in time have been regained.
Awesome. That's powerful stuff. And I'm going to have to do, like I say, every show, and every show I'm blessed to be able to do it. Go back and listen to some of that again, because you're going to want to reinforce some of those things. And not that you didn't catch it the first time, but to me, I always catch something the second or third time as well. Blue, let's get right into the rest of the show here. I know you got some real important information here for us.
Well, another add-on to that is also called memory loss. Short-term, long-term, it signalizes to that, just so people understand it deeper perception. Now,
Gotcha.
The third thing is dealing with 45's acclimation to the inversal effects of what these negative beings are causing here upon this planetized grid. Black hole may be exposure to bringing out these negative ones and just sucking them into a negative, an alternate effect altogether. Neurotically, they're causing too many issues, and if agendas keep moving forward with their end, it's just going to decimate the whole entire planetized grid. Now we're going in deep into what COVID would have called Bill Gates and so-called China's recent timing affairs into activating a crop acclimation point. Now, this crop acclimation point could cause problems because it's inversal ways of COVID structure, as well as becoming certain type of ending scenarios for acclimated human DNA structures here itself, so they can inlay an altered one race agenda speed, not on a good upturn code. The affairs go in order to a Delta X COVID-6 variant. That Delta X COVID-6 variant would pretty much remove a lot of the activation points here, set upturn through source code frequency data streams, causing problems on own coding modules itself.
So, I mean, I'm getting chills over here, and I'm just feeling weird about this. But let me just spell this out in my perfect plain English. So we're saying the two largest farmland, agriculture land holders in the United States of America, who recently got together, and Bill Gates and China's Xi Jinping, those two people own more of America's farmland than anyone else. It's statistical fact. You can look it up. Now what you're telling me is there's something sinister behind that they're going to get us through the food supply. Is that what we're saying here?
They might simulate putting some type of COVID structure in among certain crops that could cause a mass problem for mankind in the future. And you have to think about what DeSantis had recently pulled out, which was a big mistake on his end. He's supposed to be on our side. That's putting on these roads, these black tar rectification speeds, which already have a dedication code of a negative bioelemental wavelength. Certain chemical products in it is going to cause close to Chernobyl for mankind, and actually bring in a good generative node for certain archonic alpha centauri draconian reptid species that are running the program here on a bad wavelength. We have to really think of what we're going to do for this planet and set right, and how that's going. If we cannot motivate the right laws, everyone's going to suffer in the end.
You know, it brings me back, and I know in the notes I'd seen this here about the Pharaoh and the reversal of plagues. Is that the end game here? Is that what's going to happen, you think?
Plagues have already been going on. You got to think about blood. Blood also symbolizes what they're causing and what certain activated codes are causing throughout the mainframe. Adrenochrome, or else frequency outlets that are stimulating these negative beings on their side, intaking too much. You got to think about the perception of it, but not what this is saying itself. Or perception that's already going on through the timelines. Or perception of certain frogs or other types of similar effects, kind of like what these snails were all over Florida all of a sudden. Certain other places, I've heard there's bigger frogs overtaking degrees that are not good. Certain other amphibians, not good. We're thinking about lice and flies. Ever since these certain beings come into this ingrating point on this country, USA, and other ingrating points that do not perceive amongst mankind like they're human, hint, negative reptilian codes, it brought a lot of insectoids along with them that are not causing good replication speeds. Besides that, they're dephemizing the planet. Dephemizing the planet, meaning that there are more of these negative species like flies or other points of effect being accumulated because they're trashing up everywhere. They're not learning to rectify good coding effects. That's causing problems, boils, hail, locusts. I mean, if you think about it, a lot of humans are getting problems physically. A lot of these negative and particles as through big pharma saying you're getting this problem and that problem's coming out. Hint, hint, that's going into that. Livestock, pestilences, a lot of problems with livestock now. They're making more genetically modified products out there. It's not helping. And you're thinking about just the darkness part. There's a lot of that going on. There is more now of eclipses going on within the last 5 years than there has been before. If you paid attention, they're going to notice, especially the last 2 years, eclipse that, eclipse this, darkness that, darkness this. And even electromagnetic field itself playing out a darkness interval. Humans are getting problems with their electronics. They're getting problems with this and that, communication standards. Now, what goes after that? The last thing of them trying to simulate getting rid of the species on the ingrating point. But it also says there's going to be a reverse. Now, here it comes. This is coming to the time where that reverse has to be played out against these beings, even if they have to be sucked into some type of black hole interface or movement into the ways that need to be on a Neuralink standard. Processing skills, maybe Elon Musk has something good in store. Maybe certain others have something that could be maintained for mankind. One thing for certain, we have to reverse their negative effect. This is the ultimatum that's coming.
Wow. I'm listening to this and I like listening to your show. Is there anything that I can do at this point to help us along or make sure that we don't go off the deep end in the wrong direction here? Is there anything I can do? Is there anything you could tell people to do?
Directing their motivation spheres elsewhere and off the point of excitation of what's going on here. Motivate yourself outside of the box. Instead of being inversely affected by those around you and being neurally ensnared by programming speeds online and through the TV network, get your mind into the balancing you. Get into the now. Get into the you. Get into the preservation of motivating it forward. Know what the forces of life have brought you here for and take a stand for that. If you cannot take a stand for the motivation of life itself, you will destroy the capacity codes of mankind. We all have to make a stand forward and bring about a better age. Each and every one of us has that. Each and every one of us, whether we're inclined into the defamation points from these negative beings or not, has our own will still. We have our own rights, and through our rights, we can make it better.
So now it's time for ET of the Week.
Yes, ET of the Week. The Terra Joy Carriot. Interspace Dimensionals Recon Further Analysis Bray Joy Bimix. Exceptional time advancers counsel Equinox data stream signaled with matrix internal redox codes. Those codes simulate the species assistance between specific human technologies, including foam module chip codes, as well as light manualization speeding zones. Examples through a certain person himself here, Franklin, and visitations, as well as CIA arrangements and government co-op. Slovakia and Middle Eastern Hemisphere were more in tune into these type of encoding ways that dealt with these species. And then it had spread out over time through governmental affairs.
And I saw the picture that you sent me, is it? And it had the arrow pointed, is it? It's the being with the large head, like a mushroom almost.
Yes. Yes.
Wow.
Well, the other two are kind of close to it, but they're kind of cousins. They're not as higher up as this one itself.
Wow. That's awesome stuff.
But do not panic. Panic will serve no purpose. Resistance is futile.
That's awesome. That's great stuff. All right. Hey everybody, I want to thank you for watching. I want to thank you for listening. It's been episode 29. Blue, it's been a challenge, but we overcame. We got her done. I'm proud of you. Great stuff as usual. I look forward to episode 30.
Thank you, Mike.